What's growing on, gardeners? April is finally here, the month that so many of us wait for because it marks the start of nice weather. But April also marks the end of seed starting season for many of us. So if you haven't started seeds for your garden yet, you may be falling behind. But don't worry, on today's video, I am going to show you 25 crops you can still start from seed right now to have an awesome spring and summer garden.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and check out my Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom apparel and gear.
Now, as a point of reference, I live on the southeastern coast of North Carolina, Zone 8B, just outside of Wilmington, North Carolina. But the truth is, hardiness zones don't really matter for annual vegetable gardens anyway. We base our annual vegetable gardens on average temperatures and frost dates. So I have prepared this video in such a way that it will cast a very wide net, and it will be applicable to people well outside of my hardiness zone. Crops 1 through 4 that you can start from seed in April are your cucurbit plants, and that includes cucumbers, squashes like zucchini and pumpkins, melons, and gourds. Now is prime time for most gardeners to start their cucurbits from seed. The most common mistake I see gardeners make with these crops is they start them at the same time they start their tomatoes and peppers. Big mistake. Not only do these plants require warmer nights, but they reach maturity in half the amount of time. Tomatoes and peppers are subtropical plants that can tolerate brief dips to 40 degrees at night without much stress, so it's okay to plant them out in your garden as soon as chance of frost and freeze has passed. But cucurbits are tropical vines that become sickly if they are regularly exposed to temperatures cooler than 50 degrees. Therefore, you should actually delay planting your cucurbit transplants out into your garden until a couple weeks after your last frost date to give nighttime temperatures an opportunity to moderate a little bit. Your first wave of cucurbit plants should be started indoors on a seedling heat mat set to about 80 to 85 degrees. Under these conditions, cucurbit seeds should germinate in only about 3 to 4 days, and they should be ready for transplant as mature transplants in as little as 3 to 4 weeks. This cucumber plant that you see right here was planted from seed only 13 days ago. In less than 2 weeks, the seeds germinated and they grew into transplants this advanced. This pepper plant, on the other hand, was started from seed 6.5 weeks ago. And look, they are about the same size. In fact, the cucumber vines are actually a little bit bigger. So this goes to show you just how incredibly fast cucurbits grow from seed compared to something like a tomato or a pepper. Now, I start my first wave of cucurbit plants indoors 2 weeks before my last frost date because that will give me mature transplants to go out into my garden 2 weeks after my last frost date. So for most of you with frost dates that fall between early April and mid-May, April is the prime month for starting these seeds indoors. Now, I do want to warn you all of something. Some gardeners like to direct sow cucurbits out into their garden, and this is fine as a second wave crop or a third wave crop once temperatures warm up permanently for the summer, but your first crop should be started indoors and then transplanted out into your garden to give a jump start for the season. Cucurbits do not live long once they begin producing, so your best bet is to plant several waves of them out into your garden throughout the summer. We call this succession cropping. Here in North Carolina, I plant about 4 different waves of cucumbers, zucchinis, and small melons out into my garden every year. Don't try and keep your tired vines alive all summer. It's pointless. Just replace them with a newer, fresher, younger crop. Crops 5 and 6 are potatoes and sweet potatoes. Don't be fooled by the name. Potatoes and sweet potatoes are completely different species. In fact, potatoes are part of the nightshade family and are closely related to tomatoes and peppers and eggplant, and sweet potatoes are actually a morning glory root. If you haven't started these crops yet, April is your last chance to get them going, so you better get a move on. Both potatoes and sweet potatoes are frost sensitive, so your vegetation cannot emerge until after your last frost date. However, potatoes need to be sprouted prior to planting, and since they are buried 6 inches underground, they can be planted 2 to 3 weeks before your last frost date, since it takes a few weeks for the vegetation to emerge from underground. So go get yourself some seed potatoes or a bag of organic potatoes potatoes at the grocery store and set them on your countertop now to begin the sprouting process. These potatoes have been sitting on my counter for 3 weeks, and you can see the sprouts are beginning to emerge. These potatoes are all set for planting. Plant them 2 to 3 weeks before your last frost. I usually plant mine in mid to late March because my last frost date is about April 1st, but I'm a little bit behind this year, and most of you are probably a couple of weeks behind me anyway. The key is to get them going while it is still fairly cool outside, because potatoes are vulnerable to fungal diseases with the heat and humidity and thunderstorms that emerge during summer. Sweet potatoes are a totally different process. We don't plant the sweet potato root itself. We actually root them in potting mix until they sprout. Then they will send long green vines, and we clip off those vines and plant the individual vine nodes. Those vine nodes are called sweet potato slips. This process usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks. So if you haven't started this process yet, this is pretty much your last chance to do so. I've had my sweet potatoes sitting on a heat mat set to 85 degrees in my office for 2 weeks, and some of the first slips are finally beginning to emerge. We need to start slip formation now so we can plant them in late spring. I'll link to a video both above and down in the video description that will give you a totally complete tutorial on how to do this. Crop number 7 are peas, and that includes shelling peas, snap peas, and snow peas. Peas can be very easy to grow because they have almost no insect pests, have very little risk for disease, they require very little fertilizer, and they almost never need sprays. But timing them can be a challenge. While pea plants themselves are cold hardy, the pea pods are not. Even a light frost can damage the pods and ruin your harvest. But peas also don't like heat, and persistent warm weather can ruin your crop. It makes them sort of wood-like and very tough. So your peas need to flower and form pods after your last chance of frost has passed, but before it gets too hot outside to make them not taste very good. For most people in the United States, early April is going to be a pretty good time to direct sow your peas out into your garden. Because peas take about 10 days to germinate, if you sow them in early April, they should emerge by mid-April, and by the time they flower, it will be early to mid-May. That will have you picking your peas probably sometime in June, which is usually ahead of the really persistent heat and humidity of summer. Now, for most of you north of me and west of me, this timing is going to work out pretty perfectly. I sowed my peas 10 days ago, and they are just starting to pop up because here where I live, I need to beat the heat since hot weather makes peas tough and starchy. If you're near me or south of me and you haven't direct sown your peas yet, you really need to get moving, and you will probably want to get yourself a piece of shade cloth to cover them and help them mature underneath in late May, early June to protect them from the heat. This will actually allow them to develop sugars so you won't get tough, starchy peas. Crop number 8 is a bit of a wild card, and that is corn. If you are a backyard gardener that likes growing corn, it is best sown at or slightly before your last frost date. So if your last frost date is in April, it's time to sow some corn directly out into our garden. Now, why sow it right before your last frost date? Well, your corn plants will take about 7 to 10 days to germinate, so as long as the plants don't emerge from the soil until after your frost has passed, you're pretty much good to go. Now, admittedly, corn is pretty difficult to grow out in the backyard garden. Corn is wind pollinated, and it takes something like a 40-foot by 40-foot plot of corn in order for the natural wind pollination to adequately pollinate all the little silks of the corn. And most of us just don't have the space in our backyards for that kind of plot. So if you insist on growing it, you're probably going to have to hand pollinate it. I'll link to a video both above and down in the video description that will show you how to do it. It's pretty easy, albeit a bit time consuming to do. If you are a more advanced gardener that likes a challenge, or if you have a lot of room in your backyard, give growing corn a shot. When I've grown corn, I usually wind up planting an early variety and a mid to late season variety at the same time. That way I can spread out the harvest over a longer period of time. the plants will cross-pollinate, so you can't save true seed doing it this way, but growing corn in raised beds is kind of a novelty anyway, and I'm not going to save any of that seed, so it doesn't really matter to me. So please keep that in mind. It's not the easiest thing to grow, and if you're the kind of gardener that wants something easy, I don't really recommend growing corn, but for those of you that like a challenge or have the room to do it, corn's pretty great. Crop number 9 are your warm season lettuces like your romaine types. Believe it or not, most romaine lettuces are not very frost tolerant and actually prefer warmer temperatures. Now, my favorite way to grow romaine lettuce is to actually start them indoors on a seedling heat mat and then transplant them out into my garden a few weeks before my last frost date. But this time of year in early April, they do pretty great being direct sown in your garden in most locations once frost and freeze risk begins dropping off. Now, if you are going to get a chance of frost or freeze, you should cover the plants to prevent their leaves from getting burned. But keep in mind, while your romaine lettuces do tolerate more warmth than your leaf lettuces, they're still lettuce. They don't like really hot weather. So you want to harvest most of the romaine out of your garden before your temperatures regularly eclipse 80 degrees Fahrenheit. If you live in a place with mild summers, you can grow romaine lettuce all throughout spring, summer, and into the fall. If you have hot summers like I do, it's a good idea to have shade cloth on hand so you can cover the plants overhead to prevent bolting in late May, early June if you get a few early heat waves. This will prevent your romaine from getting prematurely tough and bitter. Crops 10 through 17 are your root vegetables, and that includes crops like beets, carrots, daikon, parsnips, radishes, rutabagas, Swiss chard, and turnips. This is your absolute last call for sowing root crops because hot weather makes them struggle. All of these crops grow and taste better when it is still chilly out at night and pretty cool during the day because their sugar content is inversely proportional to temperature. Cool weather and frost actually makes them sweeter, and these roots will be starchier and tougher when they mature in warm weather. All of these crops should be direct sown because root crops do not like having their roots disturbed and do very poorly from transplant. The best way to grow them is to direct sow the seeds into your garden. Now, you may notice that I snuck Swiss chard on this list, which is not a root vegetable, and we harvest them for the greens, not the roots, but they are very closely related to beets. In fact, they have almost identical leaves, the seeds look the same, they're planted the same way, and they thrive in pretty much the same conditions, so I thought it best to include them on this list. Now, once again, I recommend that you install shade cloth over your root crops when temperatures start regularly getting warm, say 75 degrees or warmer. Protecting them from heat will dramatically improve their quality. Another strategy is to sow your root vegetables in shade for a summer harvest. They will take longer to reach maturity when grown in shade, but this is a great way to extend your summer harvest window. Crops 18 and 19 that you can start from seed in April are leeks and bunching onions, also known as green onions or spring onions. These are crops that you can grow all throughout the year in most climates. Not only are they so cold hardy that they can survive temperatures as cold as nearly 0 degrees, but they can also tolerate heat because they are biennials with lifespans of about 18 to 24 months. I grow these 365 days a year, and I always have rows of each in different levels of maturity for a constant successive harvest. The best way that I have found to grow them is to start them indoors as transplants because the seeds are very tiny and germinate close to the surface with only about an 1/8 inch of soil cover, so if you direct sow them, a lot of times heavy rain can wash them away. I recommend that you start a new 6-pack of these every 4 to 6 weeks to keep the harvest going all throughout the year. And crops 20 through 25 are your annual herbs basil, chives, dill, fennel, garlic chives, and parsley. Most of the herbs on this list are cold hardy, with the exception of basil, the only frost-tolerant herb that I just mentioned. Most of these plants are going to do best started from seed indoors and transplanted out into your garden, with the exception of dill, which does really well being direct sown. Parsley is notoriously difficult to germinate, so be very generous when you overseed the individual seed cells, and be prepared to wait about 2 to 3 weeks for germination on that one. All of these herbs can be planted out into your garden once temperatures are safely above 25 degrees Fahrenheit, except for basil, which is frost sensitive. You will have to wait until after your last frost date to plant basil out into your garden. Now keep in mind, basil is the only heat-tolerant herb on this list. All of the other ones will struggle in warm temperatures once temperatures regularly go above 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which can force them to bolt, flower, and go to seed on you. If you have hot summers, a great strategy is to plant these in a shady spot because they will all thrive in a shade garden. If your springs take a long time to warm up and you are concerned that planting them in shade will stunt their growth, you can place shade cloth over them once it gets warm outside. Or you can plant them in containers and grow them out in full sun during the spring, and then when summer arrives, you can pick them up and move them into a shady spot all summer long to get the best of both worlds. All of these herbs do fantastic grown in containers. But wait, I have a bonus crop for you. Bonus crop number 26 are support flowers. Yes, these aren't edible by us, but sometimes it's not all about us. Sometimes it is about supporting all of the other good animals that do our gardens good. All of the pollinator insects in this case. Now, when I say flowers, I say plant whatever your heart desires. Sunflowers, borage, nasturtiums, zinnias, marigolds, alyssum. It doesn't really matter. Whatever you like, just plant them all throughout your garden. Plant them in different densities, plant them at different times. That way there's always something in different blooming phases so you can support all of those pollinators. So not only will you have better pollination around your yard and garden, but I also believe in the population density theory of insects. Just like you can only fit so many human beings in a square mile, well, you can only fit so many insects in a certain spot. So if you're bringing in lots and lots of good insects into your garden, well, that squeezes out room for the bad insects. The more good we bring in, the higher the population density of the good insects, the less room there is left over for higher populations of bad insects. So please grow those flowers. The good bugs will appreciate it, and also it will be extra beautiful. It will look great, and you'll love being outside in your yard and garden even more. And the more time you spend out in your yard and garden, the better your garden is going to grow. And that right there are 25, no, make that 26 crops that you can plant out into your garden from seed in April. I don't know about you, but my garden is undergoing massive changes this year. I am rebuilding it from the ground up. I have a whole new section that I dedicated here. I'm going to put a roof up here so I can garden under cover. I am so excited to start this season because I think it is going to be the most productive year of my life, and I hope this video has motivated you to get out into your garden and have the most productive year of your life as well. If you have any questions about the different crops that I mentioned in this video, please ask them down in the comments below and I will do my best to address them. If you're interested in some of my favorite seed varieties, I will place direct links to those seeds down in the video description as well. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in my vegetable garden to help things grow, all of those are linked down in the video description in my Amazon storefront. So expand the video description, click on my Amazon storefront link, and you'll see everything I use in my garden in real life. And while you're down there, please consider checking out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video.
Hey Dale, do you want a puppuccino? Is that why you're stalking me? Does Dale want a little puppuccino? Okay. And instead of filling it to just the small line for me, we will fill it a little bit more so Dale can share. Okay. Then we turn on the cold foam and we let it get to work. All right, the cold foam is all done. Then we have to wipe the tip off. It'll clean. And we have lots and lots of foam. So we'll put some of the cold foam in Dad's iced coffee. And then we have lots of extra cold foam, which is just frothed 2% milk for Dale. Okay, buddy. Dale, can you sit? What? Dale, sit. Wait. Okay, enjoy your puppuccino. It's the best start to every morning.